Hey everyone, it's Will, Gamerdad, with another video for you. So first off, I'd like to give a shout out to one of my Patreon supporters, Liana. Thanks for your support. So I did try a combination of both Sebastian's Lab as well as the dungeon for the Omegapolis for the the phase shift, and both work equally well if you have a lot of ability to activate phase shifts over and over again. And so after some time of grinding out 37 million XP, we are here to face the second and more difficult fight for AS Mariel's Manifest. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. I also do have a Patreon account for those who want to support me this way. So this one did require some experimentation. At first, I was surprised to see Yifa here, and it didn't seem too difficult. You can't see any sort of status effects or anything. However, I brought an all physical team the very first time, and so I didn't see anything of note. That being said, the fight does have different phases. Each enemy will have different resistances or null effects. In the case of Yifa, she is vulnerable to physical attacks and nulls all magical attacks. And so first turn AF is more than sufficient to bring it down. She doesn't have a lot of HP, but obviously since your team will have to be mixed in terms of having both magic and physical type attacks, it won't be nearly as efficient in dealing a lot of damage to Yifa. And after you bring her to 50% HP stopper, you have Bertrand coming in. Now, Bertrand's actually the opposite. He is null to physical and vulnerable to magic. And so again, only with some experimentation was I able to figure out that that was the case, because there's no way you would know unless you looked up guides ahead of time from Ultima or other Japanese sources. But again, we do have a varied team. We have 2 magic users, 2 physical users. This is an all-free team clearly, and we do have Crest in the back carrying Grasta for Aldo. Manifested True Gario is more than enough on his own to deal a lot of magic damage, and if you need help, you can also get Mariel AS or Aisha to carry Grasta for you. After you've taken down both of the minions, we now have AS Mariel in play, and AS Mariel doesn't do a ton. She doesn't do a lot of damage. However, upon her coming in, you have to now survive 2 full turns at which you can do 0 damage. I mean, you can apply buffs and debuffs and so on and so forth, but every attack is essentially 0 damage, and so make sure you do have power and int dual debuffs. I would say that Bertrand's the more dangerous of the 2, but certainly if you have some type shields, or in this case we have Fire Zone active, being that Mariel should be vulnerable to both fire and wind. We just have to survive a couple of turns, and obviously with this free team having the power of a kid with multiple stacks of the her normal stacks, you can apply a pretty nice triple debuff with the Z Steel, whereby you can also power up your own team. After which, once those 2 turns have faded, you can launch a large AF and target Mariel directly. Note that also during the different phases of the fight, is almost like rage is put on either Bertrand or Yifa or so on and so forth, and so you couldn't target AS Mariel. If you bring AoEs, obviously that will help, but again, you still have to survive 2 turns without doing any sort of damage. At least AS Mariel is vulnerable to both magic and physical attacks, and like I said, you can clearly see that it didn't take much to kill it off. I'm just going to keep on attacking, might as well, but you can see that there's zeros for magic attack versus Yifa, and of course zeros for physical attacks versus Bertrand. I'm not really sure why Yifa would have resistances to magic. I mean, she is a magic user. I mean, you know, she is a whatever priestess or whatever. I was surprised to see that. Obviously Bertrand, we know he had moves that can give him tons of physical resistance, so I wasn't surprised at that point. This was a little bit different, and so still able to beat it. But it was different, and honestly the mechanics are a little bit annoying in that sense. So anyways, after all that is done, we now have things back to normal. AS Mariel's True Manifest is ours, and of course you do get a gold badge and some stones for your troubles. Overall, I would say this mechanic or this fight was interesting, but a little bit annoying. It does, though, defeat the one team to rule them all, aka the scam team or the all magic team. And so in that sense, I applaud the devs for making you think outside the box in order to bring a mixed team. Take a look at the grass stat and setups. Pretty standard across the board. You know, having Aisha as your free fire setter with abilities to buff your team and do extra damage. If you really need her, you can use her singing in order to double your damage if you are having issues with damaging. Obviously, this free-to-play clear is a whale strat in the sense that you are gated with some high-level light and shadow requirements. I do have a 255 Garyu and a 255 Aldo and a 200 Aisha at the time of this video, and so I realize not everyone will have all those units. If that's the case, try with lower light and shadows and see if you can get it done. When you do have 4 grass slots at 200 light or shadow, it does do a lot more damage. Okay, so we only have 2 examples for this fight, being that it's a little bit annoying and I don't want to create a super long video. However, we are bringing an all-wind team to this fight, and in this case, we actually have 3 physical and 1 magic user. Now, the interesting thing about 7, if you recall my 5-star review of him, is that he, in order to maximize his damage, you need to have a party at least having a total of 4 Lost Lab or IDA units. And so we have both versions of Suzette, Ultra as well as her normal style, and we do have Kirio in the back satisfying those needs. Also, being that 7 can do a tremendous amount of damage in the wind zone, and the fact that his magic is AoE will add a lot to your team. In terms of debuffing, I decided to bring in Azami normal style as my 4th unit because facing a lot of physical attacks and possibly some magic attacks, we do have options in order to debuff. I know that normal style Suzette does have demonic thrust in order to apply a 30% power debuff. However, in terms of 30% int debuff, we don't have anyone on this team other than culmination winds from Azami, in which case we can do that just to prevent any damage. You can see 1 hit from both Rampage Gale as well as Ultra Suzette's Scythe was able to bring each minion down to nothing. And again, 2 turns of pause where we can't do absolutely anything. So you take the time here to apply your buffs and debuffs. Make sure there's power and int debuffs on the enemy just to prevent any damage. In this case, you can see my loadout in that Azami is actually our secondary healer. She does have a fresh heal badge, and I did equip it as my 4th move if needed. However, with Tetra in the back, we really don't have to worry too much about that. And just keeping those buffs and debuffs on, we're not going to take a ton of damage. So here, yeah, again, 2 turns of doing nothing. Just apply everything. In the case of 7 being our only magic user, make sure you do use his move in order to reapply mental focus, since the fight does last more than 3 turns. Otherwise, you will lose out on his his mental focus to maximize his damage. So keep that in mind. Dust Devil is the move that reapplies it, and I'm going to just cast it here because we still have to wait an extra 1 turn since there's a barrier up. And again, I don't think you can dispel it. I think that's part of the mechanics of the fight. And so again, just wait it out. And with plenty of power debuffs, you can see Bertrand was of no threat to this team. We also have the end of turn heal from 7 and the end of turn heal from Tetra, and really not much left here. There is a little bit of buffs and shielding from AS Mariel giving to the team, but we can penetrate right through that with either wind resist debuff from Azami, and then just power through this fight. I would say that, again, not too difficult. Try to find a different strategy here, so hopefully you do enjoy the 2 different fights, one with all free team essentially, and one with a mix of free and gacha units. It was nice to have both Suzettes back on the team. I can pay tribute to my waifu and try to use them as best as I can. And we just finish it off right there and then. Not a ton of damage. Obviously, the free team actually did significantly more damage, being that Garyu does so much damage at 255 Shadow. For those who don't have it, you might consider wanting to grind him up if you can and you really need some fire DPS. He will satisfy your needs quite nicely. Okay, so loadout here, pretty standard stuff. lots of Grasta, pain setting Grasta, and remember that once you have true manifested Suzette on your team, you can apply pain. If not, don't forget that Seven himself can apply pain with his Monsoon zone setting move. If you don't happen to have Alter Suzette, he can still set a zone, and then you just sub another IDA or Lost Lab unit for your 4th. And we just round out the team, and of course, Grasta holders here in the back. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.